Greetings, YouTube. Recently, I saw a thread on one of the message boards I read, and someone who was postulating the idea that in a fantasy setting, you could have mythological and theological concepts of reproduction in a fantasy game because there's no connection to reality. You don't have to worry about the fact that, barnacle goose are not actually produced from barnacles. You can have barnacle goose produced from barnacles in a fantasy setting without batting an eye. But this person was talking about the reproduction of us and another sapient races. So like your player character races in a campaign. And like four, like there's like five of them that I don't even remember what they were. But one of them stuck in my head. And that was the idea that for a fetus to be quickened, for a fetus to become a sapient being, the fetus had to be possessed by a ghost. Now, I'm tossing out the ghost concept, and I'm just going to get to the heart of the matter. We're talking about souls. So here's the setting I'm going to throw at you. This is just a thought experiment. It's going to be a two-part video, actually. I'm going to have a second video. There's a follow-up to this one. So a divine being, which has a very distant, unattached kind of a vibe towards the world that it has created, has decided there are X number of souls. The actual quantity is immaterial. You can decide how many souls there are. But that is the maximum number of sapient beings that can be in that world. And originally, there were 13 sapient races, from like goblins to dragons. That was it. There were 13 of these races. And each race has the same quantity of soul time. What do I mean by that is that if a person is born, one of these races is born, that race gets the same amount of soul time, but it's delivered in different manners. Elves get long lives, low population density. They have a long gestation period, and they have a long period to wait until they can reproduce. An elf can be like 40 or 50, I think, before they can reproduce. Whereas a goblin might be able to reproduce at like age 5 or 6. But they have lives that end at 30 years. So each race essentially gets the same amount of soul time. Dragons, of course, have the longest lifespans, but they're the fewest quantity of creatures, of beings in this universe. And originally, there are 13 of these races. And you can figure out what they are. It's up to you. They could throw a couple of giants in there, or something like that, or maybe even just one species of giants, one species of like ogre, and the rest are all of the lesser size, more medium and small size races, and the dragons are the only one that's large, for example, or however big dragons get. So eventually, the sapient beings of this universe figured this out. This is their world, and they discovered this over time, that there's a set number. Maybe it takes a long time for the populations to finally grow to the point where they hit the commodity wall. There just aren't any more souls to spread around, and if there isn't a soul, there's no pregnancy. That doesn't happen. They also figured out if you kill a member of the other species, that frees up souls into the commodity market. They're now fluid. And you have the same chance of any other species of having one of those souls end up in your race. But because some races have shorter gestation periods and become fertile at a younger age, there's a higher percentage chance that they will catch a soul. But remember, they lived for a shorter period of time. Eventually, the three shortest gestation period races are essentially in a competition trying to outbreed all the others. And the number one, of course, are winning because they're the shortest race, shortest gestation, youngest age of fertility. So races 2 and 3 decide, well, we've got to do something about this. And one of those races has a +2 intelligence. I'm using Pathfinder 3.5 concepts. Um, you can use anything you want to. Hold on a second. I don't know who it was, but they're going away. I don't recognize the number. So they decide they're going to take out the youngest race. And one of them, because one of them is smart, they begin to figure out how to do this both for open warfare. So both of these races declare open warfare on the shortest living cycled race. But they also hire mercenaries from other races. They use magical formulas to create diseases that help reduce the fertility, and they're targeting the females of that race in particular. Yes, this is an atrocity. I'm aware of this. And by hook and crook, they eventually succeed in exterminating that 13th race. Now, the divine being of this universe lets it happen, stands back, does nothing until it succeeds. And once it succeeds, it tells all the other races what happened. In one moment, everyone else knows suddenly what those two races have done. Language barriers are breached. Nothing matters. They all know. In addition, that divine force curses those two races. Now, it could be anything you want to. Maybe one of the races was medium and he makes it small, or she makes it small, or it makes it small. Its gender is immaterial to me at the moment. Maybe one of them is reduced to being a cyclops, a curse, an obvious curse. You can't escape from it. Something like that. They are now cursed forever. Now, everybody, all the other 9 races, shun these guys completely. Or 10 races. The other 10 races completely shun these people. And they are driven out or murdered on mass scales. But they do survive and they move off into different areas. Some come together, the two races create their own society. Some go off in isolation, so they're just one race in each group. But they become very isolated and they're out of the way, and trading is very uncommon. And no traders go to their settlements. They're always like a meeting point somewhere between. So you might have communities pop up that become trading spots. And that is the status of when the campaign starts. That's it. This is the world that it lives in. You can decide how long it's been since the extermination. How long the cursed races have been cursed. But still, genocide means that frees up more souls, now doesn't it? And that's always going to be on the table. Now, no one's done it in a long time. But what's going to happen when you've got that limit? You can't go any further. There aren't any more souls. Now, this setting would probably best be served, I think, by like Arcana Evolved, actually, a system that has no alignment. There are no gods. There is a divine force. Everybody knows there is divine force. It would probably be best to have like a single spell list that everybody pulls from, different spellcasters for like simply using different stats to specify. So like some classes are using wisdom, some are using intelligence, some are using charisma. But they're all going after the same spell list. In the arcane and the original arcane and divine spells are all on that list at the same time. Arcane Evolve is a pretty interesting concept. Does a nice job of presenting the 3.5 idea without alignments. There's no eternal damnation. There's no eternal salvation. You know that when you die, you're going to be recycled. Now, this is also would be a great opportunity for a class or a prestige class based around tapping into your past lives. Maybe everybody gets a certain bonus based on their past lives. And some people have a strong connection to their past, so they get a single large bonus. Some have a weaker connection, but they may have more than one. So like You might get some skill bonus like a +6. Somebody else might get 2 skill bonuses to +3, or 3 skill bonuses to +2. You get the point. Um, Remnants, shadows of past lives that are inside people's heads, and maybe there's a class or a set of feats or something that would let you tap into that ancestral history. And I believe Arcana Evolve already has a class like that. I I want to say Akashic, but I could be wrong. That could be something from Dreamscard Press and Psionics. A lot of crap in my head. Um, but this is the setting that I'm presenting. So now I've got 12 races, 12 sapient species, and they all know there's not enough souls to go around. Now, how does that affect end of life treatment? Do people go out of their way to help save people, or do they just kind of shrug their shoulders and go, well, who cares if the guy dies? You know they're coming back. Or you want to hold on to that soul as long as possible. Do the racists and the supremacists, the racial supremacists, want to make sure that those souls stay in their race as long as possible? Are the younger races that have the shorter life cycles trying to breed as frequently as possible to try to pull those souls into their race, even though they know they're going to have a shorter lifespan? And the long-term races, have they reached a kind of peace with it, knowing that they will never win by numbers, but they're always going to have the longest run? So these are just some ideas I'm throwing out there. This is something I thought of in one night while at work, um, and I thought it'd be interesting. So now this is a video is going to end. I'm going to pick this idea up for next week when we talk about what happens when someone is born without a soul.